Hi, and welcome back to the Kung Fu Book Review. Today we're going to be talking about the Kung Fu Dragon Pole, which is a Wing Chun book by W Cheung, at least a younger W Cheung, with no shirt on. Overall first impressions of this book is this is an older book, Wing Chun book, about one particular part of Wing Chun training, which is the weapons training. Which is something that happens generally at the very end of the system. So it's sort of for advanced students, for learning to fight with a weapon, which is not really practical in this day and age, because we don't tend to carry long, 7, 8, 10-foot spears around or poles with us, unless we work on barges, or in the UK do punting, or if it's for power generation. Primarily, right? So it's for an advanced student who already knows the Wing Chun syllabus, and then they're going to build some grip, forearm strength, and to project some power. I think this is not a great book, to be honest. I think this is my first solid thumbs down for a number of reasons, which I will get into. But before you join me on this fun journey, let's talk a little bit about the man himself. Who wrote this book, W Cheung. So W Cheung was one of the last students of Yip Man. So he was sort of just snuck in right at the end, right, with a couple of other guys that now teach and run large organisations. And he'd learnt the Wing Chun system direct, the sort of the Yip Man Wing Chun system. Then moved over to Australia and started his own large organisation over there. And he's got a number of students, and his forms and methods also they tend to look a little bit different. And what he's tend to has done, at least what I think he's done, is that he's put quite a lot of additional applications in the movements, which in his forms in particular, which are applications from Chi Sao. And which I don't have a problem with. So there's spent a lot of time and effort thinking about the movements, thinking about the most common applications and counters in Chi Sao, and then he's expanded his forms to put a little bit more footwork and a little bit more variety of applications in it, which is good. So, and his own movement quality and power and speed, from what I've seen of it, looks pretty good. Sorry, my door just flung open because I've got the window open because it's quite warm here, and I've just finished training, so I'm all flushed. So he's got a good pedigree and a good background, and he's got a lot of people that are the big fans of his system, obviously. But just because you're a good teacher and you know the real stuff doesn't necessarily make you a good book writer. Now, at least in his younger days, W Cheung was the proponent of I'm going to release every little part as a small book, right? So he produced quite a lot of different books, and also most of these books are quite old. So 1986 was the original publication of this one. I was like 1 year old then. So, he's been doing it for a long time, and the standards of the books back in the day was not great. So, what my number one complaint here is that this is a classic old school book in that it is filled with page after page after page of very little text and lots of stills of all the different pole movements, black and white stills without much explanatory information. In the age of the video, YouTube or DVD or whatever, this is not a great way to learn these movements. So, especially if you don't really explain it, right? So you get generally to get a small block of text with black and white pictures with maybe some arrows drawn on them. But it's very difficult to learn the pole movements from this book. I would absolutely struggle to do that, which is the primary purpose of this book, right? So because it doesn't have a lot of theory in it, it doesn't have a lot of why do we train the pole, principles of training the pole, etc. It just basically has the movements and then a bunch of short attack and counter sequences, which is the main method by which sort of Wing Chun pole training is. You do basic exercises, you do some stance training, Then you learn the pole form generally after that, once your grip's sort of strong enough and you've done the basics. And then you do two-person work and a little bit of like chi sao with the poles. And then there's some attack encounters with the knives versus poles. And that's pretty much the whole system, at least as far as I've known. There could, correct me if I'm wrong, there could be other people that have innovated and added more things. But it's, you know, the pole form is very short. You know, it's called the 6.5 point pole. There's not really movements in it. And most of those movements are repeated just at different angles. So it's, you know, if you know the history of Wing Chun, you know that the pole actually was joined to the Wing Chun system by another practitioner who, you know, did a sort of a Shaolin, you know, sort of northern Shaolin style. So the footwork and the structure of the pole is very, very different. And it's almost like another martial art that's just been blended in, which is common, you know. So back in the day, all martial arts were like that. Especially a good master, he met someone, he was like, "Oh man, I like that. That's a cool style. I'm going to nick it and put it in my system." You know, so that they weren't as conservative as we think. You know, they were all like, if they met someone who was good and had something that they thought was good, then they tended to incorporate it into their own styles. So yeah, let's go through the play-by-play. So. Yeah, a little bit about the author. My other big negative, which you will see in this, is why does he have every single photo of him with his shirt off? You know, why? You know, could easily have been done with a shirt on. Yeah, even in Bruce Lee's books, you know, and that man had some abs, right? And William Cheung is, yes, you know. He's a trim, but he's no Bruce, you know, let's put it that way. He's not shredded to the bone. So, yeah, I don't see the idea and purpose behind that, like, other than just some sort of crazy ego thing, like, or maybe a commercial thing, I don't know, maybe it was like, you know, muscle magazines, but it was prolific in the early days of these Kung Fu books, and I just don't know why. Anyway. Yeah, so you get 1-page bio, 1-page introduction. You get a little bit of the history of the dragon pole, but again, it's 2 pages, so it is the most potted of history. So you get a little bit about, you know, the Red Junk and how which is the opera house where they were practicing, and how like I mentioned, described just before, that the styles merged, 2 practitioners met, and then they incorporated it into Wing Chun. Contents page with more. Whoa, there he is, posing with the pole. So exercises for the dragon pole. I'd say this is probably some of the best stuff. Actually, is his that he lays out the foundation training that you should do as a sort of beginner or intermediate student to build the base that you need to handle a large weapon like that. So which is basically stance training. So you do horse stance, right? A low square horse stance, and then you do punching to the side, right? So in a side-on horse stance, right? So you do these large rounded shapes, punching, right? And that's like the same sort of force that you would use if you were using the pole. And a beginner who hasn't built up the body structure can still do this and take part in these exercises. So I think that's good. I wish that he explained that a little bit more, you know. So you get one line about it, but and then again, this is the best bit. So again, he introduces some of the footwork training and exercises that you can do without the pole. And so we used to call this the 50-50 footwork. So it's the pole footwork basically, and you can do it empty-handed. And this is great because it builds structure, and it also introduces this kind of circular shape in Wing Chun, which is important for when you're trying to throw your opponent. So good that that's done there. And yeah, as I said before, he does the basic training. So, you know, which is probably the one that I've seen the most common across Wing Chun schools, which is this movement where you bring the pole up, shoot it forward, and then drive it down again. And you just repeat this to build strength in the grip, forearms, triceps, and shoulders. Some other accuracy training drills. And then he introduces the idea of how to train with the pole. And he introduces the 6 main movements, which are from the form, how to do each of those in, you know, not very easy to see photo form. and then he does the whole form. So he does the whole 6.5 point pole form, and it's, you know, shirtless him doing it over and over and over again, and it's because they're repeated movements. So and then you get all this stuff against shorter weapons. Again, this is a lot of material to cover in a single panel, because the other partner doesn't know what they're doing, right? There's no content in here about how to hold or use the other weapons and what to do with them. So yeah, just more stills. Again, sticky pole training, very, very difficult to see because you don't see that whole arc, right? The circular arc of the chi sao. No description of how it's supposed to feel, anything like that. It's just lots of stills. And then he does lots and lots of applications, pole on pole. Again, everyone's got their shirts off. Apparently it's important. Yeah, and there's loads of this. Most of the book is just, you know, he attacks with a straight pole, you do a bong pole and then roll over and strike, and it's just lots and lots of variation, because nearly all Chinese pole fighting has these three, you know, so you knock it out of the way, roll back to center, and then poke them with the pole, right? It's across all of, you know, north, south, everywhere, right? Wing Chun has its own particular flavor to it with the center line principle, but basically it's all over Chinese martial arts, and it is repeated over about 20 or 30 pages of just, you know, he attacks with a low thrust, you knock it out the way and poke him. He attacks with a middle thrust, you knock it out the way and poke him, right? So yeah, it's got the combination of not enough information and too many repetitions of the same thing. So yeah, not great. And that proceeds all the way to the end of the book. There's no glossary or anything, because there's not really many terms that are introduced. Yeah, and then you get a little bit at the back with his other books. Overall, I would say don't get this book, right? Unless you really want to see a young W Cheung with his shirt off, then I really recommend this book. But otherwise, it's not great. Like there are much better ways to learn the pole, especially if you're an experienced Wing Chun student. And you're looking for a supplementary training guide. There are much better books, people that have done videos out there. So yeah, sorry. But in W Cheung's defense, this book was published a long time ago. So, and the standards of books, of martial arts books, have risen significantly since the beginning of this. So at the time, this book would have been great, right? Because there would have been few resources available in English to explain this. So at the time, probably would have been an okay book for the price. Nowadays, I wouldn't recommend it. Good. Yeah, let me know if you want me to review other Wing Chun books. There are, you know, lots and lots more, especially if maybe other better books on the pole, because I have a couple that I could recommend. Or maybe some other books by W Cheung to, you know, give him a fair shout. Some of his later stuff maybe that is better. Good. Please like, share and subscribe, and best of luck with your training.